If you've ever searched for financial freedom, passive income, money mindset, or why smart people go broke despite doing everything right on paper, here's something almost nobody tells you. Intelligence has almost nothing to do with it. There's a single, well-documented bias studied extensively in behavioral economics that quietly overrides logic every single time money is involved. It doesn't care about your IQ. It doesn't care about your degree. Doctors have it. Engineers have it. Financial advisors have it. People who can solve complex problems at work make embarrassingly simple money mistakes at home and almost never notice the pattern repeating. Once you understand this one bias, you'll start seeing it clearly in every financial decision you've ever made, including some you're about to make later this week. Here's what makes this bias so dangerous. It doesn't feel like a mistake while it's happening. It feels like a reasonable choice made by a reasonable person in a reasonable moment. Someone with a high income sees a modest financial mistake and assumes it's harmless because the bigger picture still looks fine on paper. A smart, capable person delays saving for retirement, not because they don't understand compound interest. They understand it perfectly, but because next month always feels like a better time to start than this one. Being smart doesn't cancel this bias out. In some cases, it actually strengthens it, because smart people are better at constructing convincing reasons for the exact behavior the bias is pushing them toward. The bias itself has a name, and once you hear it, you won't be able to unsee it. It's called present bias, sometimes known as hyperbolic discounting. In plain terms, your brain values a reward available right now dramatically more than an equally sized or even larger reward available later. Not slightly more, dramatically more. Offered $100 today or $110 in a month, most people take the $100 today, even though waiting is objectively the better deal. Push that same choice a year into the future, $100 in 12 months versus $110 in 13, and most people happily wait the extra month. The math is identical. The only thing that changed is how close the reward is to right now. Present bias doesn't argue with math. It just quietly overrides it whenever now is on the table. This isn't a purely modern discovery either. Long before behavioral economists ever gave it a formal name, older wisdom traditions already warned about the same pull, the temptation of what's immediately in front of you over what patience would eventually build. What's new isn't the bias itself. What's new is that we can finally measure it, name it, and design around it, instead of simply calling it a character flaw and hoping willpower fixes what it never actually fixes. This is where it gets uncomfortable, because your paycheck arrives in exactly that trap. Every single month, the moment money lands in your account, it isn't abstract anymore. It's immediate. A new purchase, a nicer dinner, an upgrade you'd been eyeing, all of these are available right now. Saving, investing, paying down debt faster than required, all of these are rewards that live in the future, sometimes decades away. Present bias doesn't need you to be reckless to win. It just needs the reward to be close enough and the future benefit to be far enough, and it will quietly tilt the decision every time, regardless of how well you understand personal finance in theory. Look at how this plays out in something as ordinary as a subscription service or a minimum credit card payment. Signing up for a new subscription costs almost nothing in the moment, a few seconds and a tap. Canceling it, oddly, requires more deliberate effort than starting it did. So present bias keeps nudging the decision toward doing nothing, month after month, even as the small charges quietly accumulate. Minimum payments work the same way in reverse. Paying only the minimum feels like the easier, more reasonable choice today, while the extra interest that decision generates lives entirely in the future. Invisible at the moment the choice is made. None of this requires financial ignorance. It requires exactly one thing: a reward or a relief that's available now, and a cost that isn't due until later. Present bias doesn't need anything more sophisticated than that to keep winning quietly, month after month, invisible to the very person it's affecting. Quick pause. If this kind of money psychology is exactly what you come here for, hit subscribe to the Wealth Ladder now, because the next part is where this bias gets genuinely expensive. Here's the part that separates people who stay caught in this trap from people who eventually escape it. Awareness alone doesn't fix present bias. Understanding the concept perfectly well doesn't stop your brain from feeling the same pull the next time a reward shows up close and a cost shows up far away. Knowing about the bias intellectually and beating it behaviorally are two completely different skills, and almost everyone assumes that knowing is enough. It isn't. This explains something that confuses a lot of financially literate people. They can explain compound interest flawlessly, they can calculate exactly how much a habit costs them over 10 years, and they still make the same present bias choice the very next time money is in front of them, because the bias operates below the level where explanations actually help. What actually works is removing the decision from the moment entirely. People who successfully escape present bias don't rely on willpower in the moment money arrives. They design the decision in advance, before the reward is sitting right in front of them, when the choice is still abstract and easy to reason about clearly. A transfer that moves automatically the day a paycheck lands before it ever feels like spendable money. A debt payment set above the minimum by default, so the smaller, easier, present-biased option was never on the table to begin with. Even something as small as an automatic increase in savings every time income rises, agreed to in advance, in a calm moment, long before the raise actually arrives, and lifestyle inflation gets its chance to claim it first. The goal isn't becoming a person who no longer feels the pull toward immediate reward. Nobody becomes that person. The goal is building a system that makes the better decision automatic, so present bias never gets the chance to argue its case in the moment that matters most. Consider two people with identical incomes, identical financial knowledge, and identical intelligence. One of them relies on discipline in the moment, deciding fresh every single month how much to save after expenses are covered. The other automates the decision entirely, moving a fixed amount away before it's ever visible as spendable income. On paper, in year one, their financial knowledge looks the same, and their monthly statements barely differ. Their outcomes don't stay that way for long. The person relying on in-the-moment discipline loses small battles constantly, not from ignorance, but from exactly the bias we just described. Present reward always slightly outweighing future benefit, one reasonable feeling exception at a time. The person who automated the decision simply removed themselves from that fight altogether, month after month, without needing extra motivation or extra knowledge to keep winning it. 10 years later, the gap between them has nothing to do with who understood money better. It has everything to do with who stopped negotiating with their own bias every single month. This is why smart people go broke, and it has almost nothing to do with intelligence. Present bias doesn't check your credentials before it tilts a decision. It works exactly as well on a financial advisor as it does on someone who never studied money at all, because it isn't a knowledge problem, it's a wiring problem. Reading another book on personal finance won't fix it, and neither will feeling embarrassed about the last time it won. The people who escape it aren't the ones who finally understand compound interest well enough to resist temptation through sheer willpower. They're the ones who stopped trying to out-argue their own brain in the moment and built a system that made the better decision before the bias ever got a vote. If this changed the way you see your own financial decisions, hit subscribe to the Wealth Ladder right now. New videos on money psychology, behavioral economics, and modern wealth systems drop every week. Drop a comment below and tell me honestly, no judgment. Is your money on autopilot, or are you still negotiating with present bias every single month? The Wealth Ladder. Understand money, move up.